Hey, everybody. This is Ken Tucker with Changescape Web. Welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to succeed with social media. Um, Whether you like it or not, social media has become a necessity for almost any business. But doing social media right can be a real challenge. It can either be a massive time suck, where you put in a lot of time and effort, and can get very frustrated by not getting any results, or worse yet, you're not doing anything, and and if people are checking you out through social media for whatever reasons, and yes, they do that. It's not a replacement of a search engine, but people do check out businesses in their social media profiles and pages and whatnot. If you're not doing anything, that doesn't look good either. So we're going to talk through the ultimate social media management checklist provided by SEMrush, and then we're going to share some of our own thoughts and recommendations. So I am joined by Paul and Ian today, as usual. So welcome, guys. Let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Ian, no surprise, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to start with strategy. So, when it comes to social media management in particular, what all does that entail?
Yeah. And oh man, like I'm glad you're starting here, Ken, because in my viewpoint, I think this is where social media almost always fails. In fact, I would this is not based on any data that I have at my fingertips, but just having watched businesses, having talked to businesses, man, like almost every business that I know of who puts a large part of their marketing investment, whether that's time, energy, money, they almost inherently do not plan. They just feel like this is where I have to be. This is where I'm going to invest all of my money, and they have no plan. And so there's that old saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I see that all the time in social media. And I think it starts with, I think you alluded to this, but I think it starts with misplaced expectations. So for whatever reason, there is so much buzz, and I would hazard to say a lot of fake buzz about the power of social media to drive true leads to your business. It can, don't get me wrong. Social media
Right.
can be part of a really good strategic marketing plan, but social media by itself rarely results in high conversion rates and high closed business. So I think I think every business that's listening to this and is considering social media as part of, or a very large part of their sorry,
Sorry.
Ken's playing with our layout, and I'm like, where am I? But I think it's so important that you understand as a business where social media kind of fits within strategic marketing, how much you're going to spend in time, energy, and money, and that if you don't have a strategy, you're probably burning money. And that's true with any marketing activity, that you need a plan. But I think in social media, because of its nature, you can burn so much time, energy, and money there, and not realize it, because there's this sense of activity, that you can just, it just blows away. And I think the part that's often missed too, and I know I haven't even answered your question yet, Ken, but I think the part that's missed too is that your people's time and energy is money. Like it's a resource that if you don't use wisely, you're just blowing it away. It's not going to result in anything. And so you need to be really wise about that.
And
So
assign an appropriate cost to that.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an investment, just like any other type of marketing. Social media is an investment, and you need to be wise about that investment and measure the results. So let me jump into my true response. That's a little more, specific. But you won't accomplish your goal, which is usually to attract new clients, new customers, or patients, through social media. We just don't see that. Like we're students of the game as marketing consultants, all three of us. And man, I cannot give you one example of a business that has thrived by focusing on social media alone. Like it's I'm sure it happens. I'm sure lightning strikes, twice, but man, do not set your expectations like that. But let's start. So goals. You have to have goals, just like with any other marketing investment, any other marketing strategy or tactic. You have to have goals for your social media investment. What are you trying to accomplish? You need to be able to answer that. Like, why am I actually spending time, energy, and money in this area? What am I trying to accomplish? And how will you know when you accomplish that goal? You need to be able to track the metrics that actually measure success in this. And ideally, you need to be able to track from the activity to the end result you're after. Meaning, most people want phone calls, form fills, new customers, right? So you need to be able to attribute that to your efforts in social media. The next part in strategically planning out your social media is you need to understand your audience. Who are you trying to reach? What platforms do they spend most of their time on? Meaning social media platforms, right? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? That's really, really relevant because I've seen a lot of businesses kind of blow their brains out from an energy and a cost standpoint because they're trying to be everywhere at once, and they actually don't know where their audience is. So you want to make sure that you don't exhaust your resources trying to be on every platform. You want to be where your prospective customers are and go all in on that platform. Make sure you have a sustainable plan.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, of course.
I agree with that. I would say though, go ahead and claim all of your social media profiles so that you can grab the username so that nobody else can come along and do that. Even if you can't invest time in posting to a particular channel, I think it's still worth getting it just to protect your brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like we'll probably talk about this later on, but part of what I'm going to talk about in a minute is having a sustainable social media system, right? For posting, for engaging, all that kind of stuff. But if you can do that, and if you can actually be consistently posting to even the secondary social media channels sustainably, consistently, cost effectively, then of course you should be doing that too.
Yeah.
But I like your point for sure, Ken.
Yeah.
Jumping off from the audience, understanding who your audience is and where they spend time is actually creating buyer personas. I'm not when I was in the corporate world, we used to spend enormous amounts of time, energy, and money on creating these huge personas that were used throughout the corporate environment. And there's value in that. But oh my goodness, like this is not a year-long project. This is down and dirty, like define who our key target audience is through their buyer personas. It's an act of looking at who our very best customers are, determining what the common attributes, interests, demographics, and buying habits are in that group, and really just creating kind of this avatar, this persona of who an ideal customer is. And I think this is really critical because you can't create good content if you don't understand your audience, and creating a buyer persona is really key to doing that. I think it's not wasted time and money if you take the time to do that quickly and efficiently, but don't, it's not like a hundreds of thousands of dollars project like, some of the bigger businesses used to do. You do not need focus groups for this, people. The next part of your strategy is creating your social media brand guidelines and style guides. And again, big businesses, we used to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this to create these Bibles that, this is what you do. This is how the business has to be perceived. But it's really about how do you create, even if it's a one pager that says, hey, this is our brand. These are the key visuals that, or the style and the tone of the visuals that we want to use socially, and the colors of choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the tone of voice that we want to come across as a business. Are we playful? Are we highly formal? How are we going to communicate? And this is really, really important because chances are you'll have multiple, if a social media strategy is being done well, there's multiple people involved in it and multiple partners, right? So you want to make sure everybody is on the same page, and that one person, maybe you have a young person in your business and they're communicating in an entirely different way than an older person in your business. You don't want that. You want consistency across, how your business is being represented. So that's really important. And I mentioned a sustainable system. Anybody that's listened to our podcast knows that we're very focused on a systematic approach to marketing because it produces better, consistent, and more powerful results. So this is true in social media too. It has to be sustainable from a cost and a resource standpoint. You don't want a flash of activity. Like we see this when we're auditing prospective clients. We'll do an audit of their social media channel and we'll see how do they compare with their competitors. But we'll often see, like, even for business owners that say, yeah, we're involved in social media, or yeah, we post blog posts or whatever, it is,
Yeah.
and oftentimes what we see is there was a flurry of activity and then nothing. There's a flurry of activity and then nothing over years sometimes. And that's not how social media works, right? Like you need to be engaged or you will lose your connections and your followers. So you have to, your system should also be able to be a platform for strategically posting consistently on social media, but it should also have the flexibility to allow for and encourage your team to do ad hoc social posts that give a richness to uh, your social media presence. But I would say, like, those are for me, those are the high level, big strategic things. You as a business, if you're serious about social media, you have to have a plan, and you have to work the plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. If you're not posting on a regular basis, I mean, the algorithms want to be fed constantly. And if there's no activity, you're going to lose most, if not all, the traction that you built up. So, Paul, let's get into and kind of follow up on that. I mean, content obviously is what drives social media. Without being able to have any content, you're not going to be able to get any interest off of social media. Ian talked about that you need to make sure that you understand your ideal audience, so that you're creating content that is interesting and relevant for them. What recommendations do you have in regard to creating content for social media?
Yeah, well, one of the things Ian said is about knowing your audience and knowing where they are. There's a bunch of social media platforms out there, and you need to be where your audience is. Like Ken, you said, you know, claim your profiles, and that's the first part of creating content. You have to claim your profile. You have to set up your accounts. But if your target audience isn't on a social media platform, you don't want to spend a lot of time creating content for that platform. And something else Ian said is about, it's not a silver bullet. There's almost 8 billion people on this planet. You're going to find someone that knocked it out of the park, so to speak, on any social media platform. But that doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. So complete your profile. And there's all I have to do is do a Google search. There's a bunch of articles out there on how to do that. Create a content bank, so to speak. Have a strategy, like Ian said, have a content plan, and plan out what your content is going to be daily, weekly, monthly. Sit down, take some time and do that, because that way you're not just trying to do something off the cuff and say, well, okay, today I'm going to post about this, and then I'm going to post about that. So have that content bank, that content calendar in place. And there are content templates out there that you can use. Go, and they're free. So a lot of them are free, and there's some paid ones out there. But go get some content templates so you have a starting point and you don't have to start from scratch, so to speak, because people have already done this. Why recreate? Why reinvent the wheel? People have done this, so go get those. And get a list of hashtags. Those are out there too, and these hashtags will tell you what people are searching for, what hashtags they're using, and use those hashtags. Now, want to say something. I don't consider GMB a social media platform necessarily, or sorry, Google Business Profile. Been around for a while. GMB is kind of ingrained,
Right.
but I see people using hashtags on their Google Business Profile. Don't do that. It doesn't work on Google Business Profile, but I see it. And try different content types. God, we have this conversation with our clients all the time. Video. We cannot get our clients to use video, and it is one of the best media formats out there. People want to watch video. Some people want to read blog posts, but a lot of people want to sit down and watch a video. Use video. And if you're using video on Facebook, because I love Facebook, don't use a YouTube link. Upload the video to Facebook. That is extremely important. But
Yeah, because Facebook sees that fundamentally as a different type of post.
yeah, it does. Absolutely.
It's a video post instead of a link post.
Right.
And that gets a lot more visibility, a video post does.
Right. And I mean, when you think about it, you don't have to go hire a videographer. You have a smartphone. Just create a video. People aren't looking for perfection. I've said in the past, one of the most searched for video types on YouTube is how-to videos. And if you're a service type business, and I always use the the example of an HVAC company, you can't make money going out programming a thermostat. Do videos on different types of thermostats and a generic video on general thermostats, on how to install a thermostat, how to program a thermostat. Because if you do that, you're creating goodwill. And this is really what social media is about, is building that community. I think we're going to talk about that later, but generating that goodwill. And if you have these videos out there and you're helping people to accomplish something, and it's something that you're not going to make money on anyway, because you can't charge enough to make money on that service call. When they do need something, they're probably going to call you. So you're staying top of mind, so to speak. And then going back to knowing your audience, when you start distributing this content, you want to post when your audience is active. Social media is just constant, especially something like Twitter. It's just a scrolling feed. It's nonstop. And you want to post when your audience is active, but you also want to, how often you post is going to depend on the platform. You're going to want to post a lot more often on Twitter, say, than Facebook, because Twitter is just a more active kind of thing. And follow influencers in your niche and learn from them and follow them, interact with them. Maybe you'll get a response or a call out, and that can be helpful.
Yeah.
And then
So I want to kind of step in and let's talk about kind of the content rhythm from these different channels. Really, One of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make is and look, there's in some cases there's nothing wrong with this, but in other cases you're losing traction. You're doing something that you think is helping you, but it may not be helping you. And that is if you're posting the exact same content, the exact same format, you mentioned, Paul, hashtags, to a platform that hashtags are not important or nobody uses. If you've got, and look, there are sophisticated social media users out there on all these different platforms. You can make yourself look a little foolish accidentally. So you need to be careful with that. But at the same time, it's better than not if you're not posting, probably. And so I look at, Facebook and Instagram. You should be posting at least a couple of times a day, feeding the algorithm, feeding the beast. They want content. They want you to be posting. It may not seem like it, but it will help you get a little bit better reach. Twitter, as you mentioned, I mean, that's something that you could post on, several times a day. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can use Twitter. I mean, you can do retweets and things like that. So you could post a lot of times on Twitter. LinkedIn is probably a channel you want to be a little bit more respectful of in terms of how much you post. But again, you need to do it on a consistent basis to feed the content beast that it's looking for. So, there's just so much there. Ian, I want to kind of switch over to you. If you have all this great content, it doesn't mean that anybody's going to see it. You have to give a lot of consideration to how you get your content on social media out to the world and have visibility. So what can a small business do to improve the content distribution through social channels? I know Paul, kind of touched on a couple of things, but I wanted to get your thoughts as well.
Sure. Yeah. And just so the business owners know, it used to be much easier to get as a business to get in front of the followers and the users on social media, like especially Facebook. And then with the rise of monetization, where Facebook, Instagram, they wanted to make money off of everything from businesses. It's super. They've unleveled the playing field now, where an actual user has far more power to get organic posts in front of their followers than a business does. All because they want you to spend money to get in front of your followers, right? It's a simple concept, but it's really important to know, and not every business understands this, because you might, as an individual, be posting regularly and you might see, hey, I got 30 engagements on my post, but then when you post as a business, you're getting 2, right? Like it's a radically different kettle of fish, as some people like to say. So first of all, I think the key is understanding that. Paul touched on posting time. You need to understand when your target audience, are most engaged, and some of the platforms can actually tell you that through their analytics. Other tools that you might invest in can certainly help you with that. One of the things I think is important to share is just that there are tools out there that help make you much more efficient at posting on social media. So I think we're still all on the same boat as far as Social Pilot. Actually, Ken, you and Paul introduced me to Social Pilot. We were using Hootsuite and some other tools. Really love Social Pilot, but all of these types of tools help you as a business post to multiple platforms at the same time, and just really create some ability to be more efficient, which means you can actually post more effectively to be in front of the right people at the right time, right? So
Right.
So that's really important. And then they also provide some additional analytics that you might not be seeing in the platforms themselves. So posting time is really important. Repurposing your content across different platforms. I think Paul touched on that. But one of the examples you used, Paul, was video. And one of the beauties of that is you can post a video in its native state, right? So Ken talked about posting a native, not posting YouTube, but posting a native video on Facebook, and then likewise on the other channels. But you can take that video, then you can turn it into an audiogram, you can turn it into a blog post, you can turn it into multiple kinds of clips or videos. So it's a great form of rich content that can be repurposed really well. Paul talked about.
So for example, you could do, like YouTube, it's maybe more acceptable to have a little bit longer form video.
Yeah.
And so you could take that long video that's maybe 15 or 20 minutes long or even longer, and you can repurpose it and chunk out and break out smaller little videos that you use to upload natively to Facebook or, another social media channel that maybe is just a minute snippet from that 15 to 20 minute video that you posted on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. And things like FAQs, like frequently asked questions, those little clips of frequently asked question answers can be really, really powerful, because you already know people are searching for that kind of stuff because they're frequently asked questions. So chances are they're looking for it on social, they're looking for it on Google, YouTube, right? So that's a great form of content. Paul talked about influencers, experts. That's a great one. I would even add to that your community. So there's really only two ways you can get traffic or engagement on your business's social media pages, and that's get your circle of influence, your followers, to engage your content, right? So if you're creating engaging content and if you're asking them to engage with it, like it, share it, that's powerful, because the algorithm picks that up and it will have more likelihood of sharing it with other people. Plus, it's going to be shared out to that user's circle of influence as well, right? You keep expanding. That's the beauty of social networking. The other side of that is if you have employees in your business, and you personally, like this starts with leadership. If you're not sharing and liking your company's posts, get your finger moving, click that like or share, or task somebody in your business to do that for you. Like, it's just dumb, because chances are high, like especially on LinkedIn, if that's your main platform, chances are very high that your personal profile will have far more followers than your business profile. That's just the way it usually works, unless you're, Coca-Cola or some, Red Bull or something like that.
Right.
So you and your employees should be motivated to share, to like, to get engaged with your content, because that will organically spread it out to each person's circle of influence. And then the last part is, so you really only have two options. One is the organic side, which we just talked about, and the other is paying, right? And again, that goes back to the first point, which is all of these platforms want to make money off you as a business. And so, there's good ways and bad ways of doing this, but simply boosting your posts is kind of the first layer of paying a little bit of money. You don't have to pay a lot, but pay to play, pay to get out to your followers and extend beyond your followers, so that your social posts will actually be seen by people. And of course, you'll have metrics related to that. And there's also other layers of advertising on social platforms, but boosting your posts is kind of the first step towards that. So do it, see what the results are.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, as social media implies, it's social. And to me, when we're talking about social, there's usually an implication of community. So how do you build a community using social media?
Yeah, that I like what Ian said about the pay to play thing, and social media. And that's important to understand, because a lot of people think, oh, well, social media is free. Well, yeah, it is, unless you want to be seen, because it's all these social media platforms started out with high ideals, but like I say, even a comrade needs to make a buck at some point, and they're all moving to this pay to play format. So you have to build that community if you want to really get any kind of traction organically. So I'm going to start with Google reviews. Now, that's not really social media, but reply to your reviews, reply to comments on social media, reply to direct messages, engage with your audience. Monitor your brand mentions, because you can ask your customers and clients questions and they may or may not answer you honestly. But if you monitor what they're saying about you on social media platforms, even if it's negative, that can be valuable information on how to improve things within your business, your operations, whatever it is. So monitor your brand mentions, and there's ways to do that. And taking part in industry discussions, that can help build your authority, because all these social media platforms, they have, like Facebook has groups, Twitter has these, I'm not sure what it's called on Twitter, but they have these conversations where you can join in. And
Yeah, you can
just
follow along by a hashtag on Twitter.
yeah, exactly. But if you engage in these discussions, that gets your brand out there. And when you engage, make sure you mention your brand, obviously, but that gets your brand out there, and can, like I said, increase your authority. And Google monitors these things. You may not think they do, but they do. Google is aware of what's going on social media, because Google has never been able to really create a social media platform. They tried, but try to get your user generated content. And again, reviews, testimonials, you can pull your Google reviews onto your website. You can post testimonials on your website, and that is user generated content. But to me, user generated content can be a double-edged sword, because if you open up your website to comments, you have to monitor the spam factor, and won't go any deeper into that, but just know that it can happen. But if you can get video testimonials from your customers, that's powerful, because you're not paying for that. It's a customer or a client that is happy with what you did, and that can be the tipping point. You might be on the short list for you have clients or customers, they're saying, okay, which company should I go with? And you have video testimonials from clients and your competitor doesn't. That can be the tipping point. So
Yeah.
this user generated content can really be important. And
For lots of different kinds of industries too. I mean, we talk a lot about social media frequently performs better for a lifestyle type of business. And so, people taking pictures of themselves at the gym, or, how many steps they walked on the exercise machine, and posting that and stuff like that. Or if you get a new, hairdo or hair color, all of those kinds of things. But also, we see so many businesses missing the boat that do home services, especially, around home remodeling projects where you're transforming the look of the house. If you would encourage, and you've got to do it, you've got to, as Ian talked about, you got to have a system. But if you encouraged your customers to post pictures of those newly painted cabinets that you just had done in your kitchen, or the beautiful siding that you just had added to your home, or the great sunroom or screen room that you just had built off the back, off the back of your house, or an underdecking system that you put underneath there so that you had additional living space. You can ask people to create content, and they usually will do it. Most people like to show off great stuff that they've done and that they've had done. So you just have to get into the habit of doing it.
Yeah,
I would even, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say one last thing. We're talking about building community online, but you can take this offline as well. Encourage your customers to refer you, have a referral system in place, and have a referral network. If you're a painter, hook up with an interior designer, and refer business to one another. And, basically what BNI is all about, but create a referral network. You can take this off, as far as community, you can take this offline too.
But to keep it focused on social media, which is really what we're talking about today, that referral partner, if you're going to post as a painter, you're going to post great, projects that you've done, work with your partners, your interior designers, your general contractors, anybody that, that's in your net, the realtors that maybe you work with, to have them help share your content out, right? And you need to be prepared to do that likewise. And so, there's a great opportunity for that. That's a great point, Paul.
Yeah, I also wanted to share just the user generated content. Like, don't forget to leverage your staff for that too. Here's an example that I absolutely love. It's a local kitchen remodeling company, and they actually have tasked their team with taking video of, like, here we are on site. I'm John. This is my colleague Jeff. We're getting ready to do this big kitchen install. They're pumping people up. They're showing how organized they are because they've taken all of the items out of the truck. They've prepared them on the deck of the house in a really organized and careful fashion. And they talk you through the process of what's going to happen. And stuff like that is so powerful because, when we're hiring, in this circumstance, a home services business, we're inviting people into our home. And there's a level of fear or anxiety related to that because we really hope we've made a good choice about the trustworthiness and the professionalism of these people. And so if you can exhibit that trustworthiness and that professionalism through short video clips that are really walking people through what's going to happen in this case, a kitchen install, I mean, man, you've just reduced barriers, and you've shown, especially if your competitors are not doing this kind of stuff, man, it's super engaging, really interesting, because you actually, even if you're having somebody come into your home to redo your kitchen, you actually don't see some of this stuff, right? Because it's behind the scenes. They're just unloading stuff from the truck. They're not explaining to you the process necessarily until they start to bring it into the house. And, this is what we're contracted to do. So, like, using your staff for user generated content can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. And having your staff, remind your customers to create the user generated content. I mean, if you're at a restaurant or a spa or the gym, set up selfie stations, something simple like that. And you have to periodically remind people to use those as well. Ian, let's talk about, how do you analyze your social media marketing to really see if it's being effective? I mean, I know you also love to get into all of the analytics and dig into those details. And so what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. And the reason I love that is the data is where the decisions are, right? Like, you can quote me on that. The data is where the decisions are, because it informs your decision making. It gives you power to make smart decisions for your business. So that's what the data is for. It's not to overwhelm you. It's not to misguide you, because everybody's heard, well, statistics are, they can tell whatever story they want. And maybe that's true to some degree, but data is data. And if you look at it through the right lens, it will tell you an awful lot. So I would strongly recommend, just like Paul was talking about, or maybe you said this, Ken, was claim your profile, right? Absolutely. Yeah. The next step, I would say, and Paul talked about optimizing your profile, super true. The next step is make sure you get the tracking codes or the pixels, depending on what platform, and put them on your website. This is kind of the key linkage that gives the social platform smarts about what happens when they leave the social platform. What happens when a visitor clicks on your link? Do they just disappear into the ether? What happens when they go to your website, right? And so that's, as a business, to understand, wow, these people went from our social channel, they went to our website and they bought something, or they signed up, or they filled in a form, or they called us. That's where the power of the analytics is. And that's where, man, it can get pretty exciting. the other thing I think you need to do as a business is take time to understand the analytics, because every social platform, although there's similarities between them all, because essentially you're attracting eyeballs and those eyeballs are doing different things. Every platform has their own way of showing you what those analytics are. So just take time and pull up, search for a YouTube video on how beginner's guide to Facebook analytics, right? That's a good way to kind of dip your toe into it. And I think it's really important to make sure that you either set up consistent monthly reports from these channels if you can, so it's emailed to you, or you go in on a monthly basis, whether it's you or whether it's someone you've tasked within your business to bring back insights of what's happening, and what we should be doing as a business. That's really important. You want to have consistency to your reporting rigor, essentially. And then if you're willing to take it a step higher, invest in a better social media tracking tool. Like there's tools like SEMrush or Rival IQ. These are some really, really good tools that not only can give you analytics that are at a higher level oftentimes than the social media platforms, they can start to pull in competitive intelligence, because you can say, hey, here's 5 competitors in, if we're talking about that kitchen remodeling company, they're in the city of Barrie, they're a kitchen remodeler. Here's the 5 competitors that they want to make sure that they're ahead of. These platforms can tell you how you're competing, what engagement rates are, who has more followers, all of that kind of stuff. And it's really powerful. And all of us on this podcast, Ken, Paul, and I are all students of marketing, and we're lifelong students of marketing and social media analytics. And I think you as a business owner either have to be committed to this, or you have to have someone in your business or a partner who's committed to this, to be a student of your social media analytics, so that you can learn from your data, learn from your competitors' success and failures, learn from your own success and failures, and use that for creating constant improvement. I think it was Peter Drucker once said, you can't improve what you don't measure. And so this is just a prime example that you have to measure. And if you're investing any amount of time or energy on your business's social media, you should be measuring, tracking, observing, and using that data to drive your decision making.
And make it better.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, we're going to wrap up with you and talk about automation. So we've kind of talked a little bit about this throughout, this entire episode, but what can you do from an automation perspective to make social media management easier and more effective?
Well, it goes back to the very beginning of our discussion with strategy and having a content plan, a content calendar. And then there are tools out there that you can schedule these posts to different social media platforms. Some are easier than others, but it can be done. But that can take a huge load off your back, so to speak, because you sit down, you get your content plan laid out, and you schedule these posts. And I'm not saying that you just ignore it. You do have to monitor it, make sure it's working correctly. But you can have these things scheduled. And going back to, you can also automate replying, to like customers' most common questions or requests. And I know this really isn't social media, but having a fax on your website, so that people don't have to contact your business necessarily. That you can do this on social media, you can do it on your website, but you can have, a fax section where people can, whatever the most common questions are that you get, and you should know what they are, and they can get these answers to their questions.
I was worried you were talking about fax machines at first, Paul.
Yeah.
You don't have a fax machine? Everybody has a fax machine.
It's the
Virtual.
only way I communicate.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So,
But
yeah,
I was going to say reports. So all these social media platforms, you can automate reports that get sent to you. Going back to what Ian was talking about, the analytics, that you can have reports sent to you with the data points that you need, and that way you don't have to go into all these different platforms and look at it. You can set up reports and have them automatically sent to you.
yeah. Social media is, there are a couple of layers that I think everybody needs to kind of stop and think about. Part of it is, as we talked about, you've got to feed the content beast. And so some of that content you can build and schedule in bulk, and make your life a whole lot easier. So you could sit down and you could write a week's worth or a month's worth of, or 6 months worth of social media content that is interesting and relevant. It could be to drive traffic back to read a longer piece of information on your website, like a blog post, or watch a video. But you could sit down and bang all of that stuff out and be really efficient and effective at it. And that's a big part of the production aspect of social media. The second thing that you can never forget about, and way too many businesses completely overlook this, is the interactive aspect of your business, because that's really going to be what's going to take it over the top. And that is, about key people that work in your business, highlighting key employees, featuring your key products, showing videos of you participating in events in the community, whether it's a charity run or golf tournament, or you're hosting or sponsoring an event, maybe for leadership and education or whatnot. These are the things that are dynamic, that are really, really very difficult to outsource. You can outsource the finalization of these projects typically, but the capturing of this kind of information frequently has to be done by the business. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is, we've talked about this at the beginning of the podcast too. I think a lot of people think, well, I just met this person who's in my industry and they're knocking it out of the park with social media. Look, the reality is some people, based on their personalities, based on just the native way that they get how to use social media, the community and the connections that they've already built, it's kind of a cult of personality. And so there are always going to be people who, knock it out of the park with social media. That doesn't mean that it's the go-to channel for each and every business, but that doesn't mean that you don't pay attention to it and you don't do it the right way and you don't do it justice. So there's so much to unpack here. I think we covered actually quite a bit, in this, on this topic. Ian, Paul, do you guys have any additional thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, going back to what you said, feeding the content beast, as more and more things are driven by AI and algorithms, consistency of posting is just going to become more important, because the algorithms need that data. And if the data is old or outdated or inconsistent, the algorithms aren't going to be able to effectively optimize things.
Well, and one of the things right now, and I think Google just announced this at their I/O conference, they're going to be pulling in more interactive content from different sources, including social media and YouTube videos and things like that, into the search results. And they've been working on that for a while. You start to see a little bit more of it, with some of the different searches you're doing, but that's really the trend. And so yeah, absolutely. Ian, what about you? You have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I've probably said it already, but make sure you understand social media's place within your larger strategic marketing plan. I think for me, that's where I see a lot of businesses miss, is that because social media is accessible, they may be involved in it personally, that they think for their business, it's going to be the thing that opens the doors to hundreds of new customers. And at the same time, disregarding strategies like SEO, pay-per-click, good websites, content development, right? Like there's stuff that people ignore because it's more costly, but it will actually be far more effective for the business than social media by itself. You still need to be there, just like you said earlier, Ken. You still need to be involved. It's table stakes of being a business now. You need to spend time and energy and money on it, but make sure you have a bigger plan on top of your social media plan that governs you of where to put your money, that's going to give you as a business the best return on investment, because that's what it's all about, right? You're only spending money on marketing because of the return you're going to get from it. Otherwise, you're flushing money down the toilet. So stop doing it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing we've talked about, in past episodes is don't let your own personal bias automatically eliminate a channel. For
That's
me,
huge, Ken.
It is, for me personally, I despise LinkedIn, absolutely despise it, because the only contacts that I get are people who are trying to sell me stuff. We're way beyond the time when LinkedIn was used for people who wanted to reach out and build a community to help each other solve problems or potentially build business partnerships. Way too many people abuse LinkedIn, in my opinion, and just spam these messages out, and they're all they are. They're trying to find a way to get you to say, oh, okay, yeah, hi. Oh, now, and then they try to sell you and cram crap down.
Hey, Ken, you're imposing your personal viewpoint on us and giving us a bad perception of LinkedIn. I think
I'm giving an example.
I know.
That doesn't
but it's
mean
still
that
a relevant channel,
away,
right?
That doesn't mean that I walk away from LinkedIn as a channel.
Awesome. That closes the loop. Then
right.
I was worried there.
Exactly. So don't let your personal biases, because we all have them. I know a lot of people feel that way about Twitter. A lot of people feel that way about Facebook. Instagram, I don't get the polarizing, opinions as much. But yeah, just be careful with that, and trust people who can help guide you to make sure that you're putting the right marketing strategy and utilizing the proper marketing channels to help you grow your business. With that, Ian, I'm going to let you take us out.
All right. Well, thanks for. Go ahead, Paul.
One thing we've been talking about social media, and I think this is important, is that you don't own any of these platforms.
Right.
And, we've talked about this in the past. We didn't talk about it here. And Ken, you've talked about it a lot, that the only thing you own is your website. And what made me think about that is when Ian was saying that they disregard SEO or other things, is that Facebook can shut down your account because you put a comma in the wrong place. All right. I mean, any social media platform, they can suspend your account for no reason, and you have no control over that. The only thing you truly control is your website. So no matter how important social media may be, do not ever discount the importance of your website.
Yeah. Great point. Well, thanks for our listeners for listening in today. I hope you found this really helpful. Thanks for listening. Please share, just like we were talking about in this podcast. Please share this with others you think can find it helpful. Share it on your social media. We would love that. And be sure to pop us a note if there's a topic you want us to cover. We would be happy to do that. And until next week, keep calm and mark it on, folks.